Hi again, guys. I hope you get a lot of things from this podcast. I hope that you know that you're worth it, and no matter what you're going through in life, you will make it out of it, and that you'll come out better on the other side. I also want you to learn that if you are in a situation that you know might be wrong for you, or if you just are kind of confused on if you should be in this relationship or be around these certain people, that you can definitely look at resources, and it could tell you if you're in a certain situation and need to leave. It's important to take care of you and your mental health. And I'm happy that you listen to these things, and I hope that what you listen to can help you in your life, and also to treat people better. A lot of times a lot of people lack empathy on people's certain situations because they just don't understand. But I hope this gives you insight on how people are living and how they are and things like that. We are telling another part of Cynthia's story. She tells you so much, and she doesn't have a problem sharing and making you fully understand what she has been through, what her family has been through, and what traumas they have endured but came out successful. Also, follow us on social media: YouTube, TikTok, Facebook, and Instagram, and everything will be linked down below. And if you would like to be a part of the podcast, please contact us, and everything will be down below in the Linktree. Thank you.
30th arrest. They wanted, because they lumped all the misdemeanors together, they wanted to give me 2 years upstate.
Oh, wow. That's
They
how they
wanted to
do
give me,
it? Wow.
yeah. I don't know if they're still doing it like that, but in 2007 or whatever it was, that's how they were doing it.
I'm confused, but you serve your time though. So why would they try to lump it all together and try to send you away now?
Right. So it's reconvicting you basically for the same stuff you've already served your 10 or 15 days for. Yeah. Yeah. So they took that last misdemeanor and wanted to lump it with all the rest, turn it into a felony, and ship me upstate for 2 years. So the cocky AD, and I of course I had a crap public defender. I didn't even have an 18B or a good one. She wasn't even a mouthpiece. It happened to be that I was not guilty of this particular thing. I was not guilty in any way, shape, or form. Right. And I had such a hard time allocuting to the judge in order to take the plea, because I was not going upstate for 2 years. So they offered me 5 years probation. Right. And I was crying so hard I could barely say the word guilty, because I wasn't guilty. Right. Okay, I really was not. But in order to stay free, I took the 5 years probation, and I made a conscious decision walking out of that courtroom that day that no matter what it took, they would never see me again. Right. And I went straight to Bronx Lebanon Hospital in the Bronx, and to their psych facility. And I said, I'm suicidal. I just came out of court, and I need help. So that was where I started my track to wellness, because I knew if I went back to the street that I was going to continue not getting help. Right. Because you see, every time I went to jail, I got my medication, right? Right. And when they kick you out of jail, they give you a week's worth of medication and a referral to some anonymous provider somewhere. I am not a person, at least when I was in the throes of my illness, I found it very difficult to trust people. And so new therapists or psychiatrists was just a no-no for me. Right. And I didn't trust anybody, so I didn't want to go. So I wouldn't go. Right? So then I'd go back to jail a month later, or 2 months, or however long it was. And same scenario. They don't do any discharge planning.
That's a problem, though. That's also a thing.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. They don't do any concrete discharge planning. Now, when I was in the psych ward for the 2 months and it was time for me to be released, they would not release me until I had an address to go to. Okay? So people in the community arranged a rooming house for me to go to so I could give this address so I could get out of the hospital.
That's nice.
Yeah, it was. I was very blessed in my time in the street because I was surrounded by a group of really, really good people. Some of them were not good people, but they were good to me.
Right.
Okay. They fed me, they gave me shelter, they let me come in their houses and bathe, they gave me odd jobs. They just say, hey, Cynthia, come here, go to the store for me, and I got $5 for you.
$5 back in the day was a lot too. Now
Yes,
$5 is a quarter.
that was dinner and breakfast, especially the
Right.
way I used to eat back then. I get me $1 sandwich and a
Oh
50-cent
man.
soda or a cup of coffee. Good.
Oh
Not
man.
healthy, but good.
Right.
But I had supers of buildings who would invite me to come and stay up on the very top near the roof door. You know,
Right.
the little landings that you often have there.
Yes.
Say, just be really, really quiet and don't make a mess, and you can sleep here tonight.
That's nice. Not safe, but
I
nice.
I no, I go back to the neighborhood. And I have a lot of people to thank, and I thank them all the time. And if any of you out there who helped Cynthia back in the Bronx, back in the day, I love you and God bless you because you kept me alive. And that's real.
Right.
Okay. They kept me safe and they kept me alive. And I love those people.
Right.
And they're nothing but street people, people that most people wouldn't let into their house.
Right.
But when I needed a coat, or I needed shoes, or I needed somebody to protect me from somebody else, those street people, those homeless people were there. And that is how I ended up dedicating my life to helping the homeless. Because I know who homeless people are. Not because I was one of them, but because I lived amongst them.
Right.
And I know that they have the same hopes, dreams, loves, fears, desires, needs, wants as everybody else.
That's true.
Just the trajectory of their life has led them down a more difficult path. But living in a city like New York, where everybody is one paycheck away from homelessness,
right?
How dare we look down on those people, especially knowing what you and I know about the kinds of people who end up homeless. They're not all junkies.
They're not.
They're not, and that's not the right word. Forgive me, that's not the politically correct term. They're not all dealing with substance use disorder.
Right.
You know, they're not all coming from a domestic violence situation. They're not all coming from dysfunction. There's one lady that I know who is a senior citizen. She worked for a teacher as a teacher all of her life. She's in her 70s. Her father is in his 90s.
Oh, wow. Okay,
they have no place to live.
What? I don't understand that either. Why are we not taking care of people who are older who can't really fend for themselves anymore? That's confuses me. He's 90-something. He can't work.
Right. I have seen the couple of particular cases in the shelter system that since I talk about the aged a lot, there was one gentleman in a shelter in Brooklyn. He was in his 60s and he had become blind from diabetes. Now he's in the shelter because he's lost everything. They have no services for him. That man laid in his bed, except for when another resident would come and get him up to take him to the toilet, to take him to eat.
That's crazy.
He laid in that bed I knew him for over 2 years. And then I started asking, where's Mr. Romero? And nobody knew. Nobody would tell me. So I don't know if he died. or what happened. Then there was another man, he was an Asian man, and he was in his 80s, had no family, no kids, no family or anything. And among other things, one of his issues was incontinence. He was so incontinent, he could not make it from the bed in the dormitory to the bathroom. So they gave him diapers, right? Well, once he had the diapers, how is he supposed to get up and dispose of the diapers and clean himself, etc.? This man had so many soiled diapers under his bed that you could smell it all the way in the intake reception area. There were flies buzzing around and biting this man. And they did nothing.
That's sad.
And I don't know what happened to him either. I've met so many senior citizens who were laborers, professional people from all different walks of life, in total shock because they've lost their homes through death, illness, whatever.
Right.
And now they're in the shelter system because they had nowhere else to go. And a single lady who's lived alone all of her life, no children, no siblings, etc., is now living in a dormitory with 15 other women.
That's a lot.
Can you imagine the psychological trauma? And not only is she living in a space with 15 other women where there's no privacy at all, these other women are from all different walks of life. Street people, people with substance abuse disorder, people with mental illness. And here she is, the school teacher from this, quote unquote, normal background.
Right.
Now at 70 years old, thrust in the midst of this.
Wow.
And post-pandemic, they've removed the special consideration for senior citizens. Remember, during the pandemic and the de-densifying period, senior citizens were top on the list to get a semi-private or private space based on their health needs and so forth. They were some of the first to go to the hotels.
Okay, got it. Yeah.
Post-pandemic, they're putting them all back in congregate shelter.
Oh, wow.
Imagine children having to live in congregate shelter, which is a lot of what they're doing with the immigrant families.
Yeah,
they're having them live in congregate situations rather than giving them the private spaces that families need. First of all, if I were one of those people, I would rather be on the street with my children than in a facility with all kind of men that we don't know their backgrounds.
That's true.
And that's not to say that, but everybody deserves a safe space, not just a space.
Right.
There's a difference.
There sure is.
It's like the difference between a house and a home,
Right.
And a lot of people resist shelter because it's not a safe space, oftentimes.
Right.
So we need to make a lot of changes with the city shelter system. But right now, the fight to keep the Callahan consent decree live and the right to shelter live is one of the most important things. Anybody who wants to support the system to keep people from suffering, which is what it's all about. Anything in New York, I'm sorry to say, is going to be a crooked endeavor. Okay. We know that. We know that from the docks. We know that from the cement, what were they doing? Putting flour in the cement years ago, the trucking, all of it, everything, every big entity in New York, unfortunately, usually ends up infected with some kind of corruption.
Right.
It's the nature of the beast. It gets convoluted and twisted. HRA and DHS are no exception. Now they're all supposed to be under one umbrella, but the right hand don't know what the left hand is doing.
It's confusing.
You're eligible for a one-shot deal, but you can't get the money. Or you finally get your voucher, you're 6 years in your housing, and if somebody wants to mess with your voucher.
Yeah.
Nobody talks about the aftercare of these programs and the maintenance of these programs and instructing these people what they need to do to keep themselves in housing, to keep from having to go back to shelter. Right. Don't think because the voucher is good for 5 years that you get a break for 5 years. Those 5 years are your 5 years to get your education, to get your vocational skills, get your benefits in place, whatever it is you need to do, or find another place to live that's cheaper, because when that voucher gets discontinued after 5 years, if you can't support yourself, you're going right back in the system.
Yeah. Unless they do have a way that you can get it through HRA kind of thing. But not everybody know how to do that. Not everybody knows even possible. But if you do, we did an episode a couple of months ago with Juan. But if you look in the episodes I'm not gonna explain the whole thing here, but you can get it extended. Everybody's not gonna be qualified for this. You know, like it took forever to get to actually be city preps. It takes forever to get this part too. So it's not like, don't guarantee like, oh my gosh, I have the space. You can get it if you qualify under certain things, but you go to the episode. It says City Fabs. I don't know the title, but we can also link it down below so you can see what I'm talking about.
Yeah, check it out, y'all, because it's important. Because once you get out of the shelter system, you are now responsible for your future. And it is your responsibility to know what the fine print of that voucher is, what your lease or your sublease, depending on whether you're in supportive housing or scattered site or whatever it is. Know what your rights are, know what that paperwork says, know what's expected of you, so that you can prepare for your future.
For sure.
Because nobody else is going to do that for you. Because if the 3 years you were in the shelter system, they had plenty of time to teach you this, and nobody told you.
Exactly. Which is sad though. Like they don't tell, they basically push you. It takes forever to get in the shelter. It takes forever to get the voucher. They push you out with the voucher, but don't educate you on the voucher itself. So you're out there 5 years in, like, oh my gosh, I'm good. But they put you in an apartment what's too expensive. So either you pay the rent, what's in the apartment, or you have to go in a cycle again to go back to the shelter.
Right.
It's an ongoing wheel that is very exhausting.
Yes. They put you in these unrealistic luxury apartments. Knowing full and hell well that if the voucher disappears, you're not going to be able to afford to live there.
Exactly.
Even doing your best.
Dead in the water.
Okay? Right back into the shelter system.
Right.
Okay? You know, and so we have a lot of responsibility to ourselves, you know? These things are there for us to give us an assist, but the rest of it is really up to us as individuals, you know, and sharing information and having these types of conversations and being open to new ideas, you know, because with change and new ideas comes growth, and with growth comes strength, you know, so. That's all I have to say about that.
I want to say, you said you got back your kids after 10 years. How did you go about that? Did you have housing? I would assume you had housing by the time to put them in.
Okay. So what I didn't tell you was, while I was in the street, I gave birth to my fourth baby. She's now 22. I was 6 months pregnant in the street when I finally went upstate to a home for unwed mothers with mental health problems.
Okay.
Then I came back for a visit, bringing the baby to visit the father's family.
Had the same father or different father?
No, different father, a new father.
Okay.
A new father.
Wasn't clear. I want to know.
Yeah, new father that I'm no longer with.
Okay.
But we're best friends today. This is a man who was homeless, and we met, and he was my protector when he wasn't in jail, and you know, we're best friends to this day.
That's good. So you know what real love is, you know, now. You learn from your mistakes.
I know now, yeah. yes.
That's good.
But what happened at that time, I'll make a long story short. I after I had this baby at the age of 38. So that's a late life baby. Okay. Yeah. I had never been through postpartum depression before, but I went through postpartum depression on top of bipolar disorder, which was unmedicated because of my pregnancy and because I chose to breastfeed my children. So we were staying with his family. His brother, two brothers and his sister-in-law, when they found out that I needed to go in for mental health treatment, they conspired to steal my daughter.
Oh no.
And while I was in the hospital, I was in the hospital for an extended stay to get balanced and get on the right medication and everything. She went to family court and told the court that I had abandoned the baby. And I was literally 2 blocks away in the hospital. And they even brought the baby to visit me. Yeah. So when I got out of the hospital and moved back to that family home, a family apartment, the father was in jail again, and they did their best to chase me out of the house, to get me to leave, to make it untenable for me to live there. The baby's grandmother was there, so I said, look, I need you to take care of her for a while for me till I find some place to stay. Not knowing all this time that she had gone to court, that the sister-in-law had gone to court and charged me with abandonment.
Right.
So when I found this out, obviously it set me in a tailspin, right. And I had to leave the property escorted by the police.
With your baby?
No, because the court gave temporary custody to her.
Oh man!
But otherwise, they were going to put her in foster care because they believed that I had abandoned the baby, gone back to the streets, and nobody knew where I was, which was a damn lie.
Wow.
So that set me on a whole nother spiral.
Right.
And so I was back, and baby was 6 months old at the time. It took me till she was 11 to get her back.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, because their address was my legal address, right?
Right.
And so all the court papers and everything would go to their house.
Oh.
So bringing the court papers to me so that I could appear in court to arrange visitation or whatever the subject was.
Right.
They made it like I wasn't responding.
And
I knew nothing about it. And the next thing I knew, I lost custody of my daughter.
Oh my gosh.
So that set me on another mental health crisis. That added another, I think, 3 years to me getting myself back together. I was this close, and then this happened. What ultimately ended up happening is when I was well enough, I just reached out to my kids. I reached out to cousin Sharon. Come to find, I didn't know that my kids had been living with her. I didn't know that the father had abandoned them to move to Florida to be with another woman, and he left his kids on his cousin's doorstep. I told you he was a bum.
Yeah, you did tell me. You warned me in the beginning he was a bum.
I told you he was a bum now.
You did. You did.
So now I find out that all of these years, my oldest daughter thought I was dead.
What?
Because the father claimed to have gone to look for me and couldn't find me, so they assumed I was dead. So from the age of 10 till she was 16, 17 years old, she thought I was dead.
Oh my gosh, this poor baby. Well, she's an adult now, but this poor adult.
My son was so traumatized thinking that I was gone. He went and joined the Marines.
Oh, that's how he ended up. The cause and effect, guys. The cause and effect.
Yeah, exactly. The abuse from his father, watching his father abuse me, thinking I abandoned him, and then the father did abandon them. Okay. So I got once I was in my right mind and I was stabilized on medication, and I got the 1-bedroom apartment Supportive housing, by the way. I am a proponent of supportive housing. Okay. I'll get to that in a second. I called cousin Sharon and I said, where are my kids? And she told me that my son was in the Marine Corps. My oldest daughter was finishing high school. Unfortunately, when my daughter found out that I was not dead and that I was trying to reestablish a relationship with her, she tried to kill herself.
No.
From the shock. Yeah. From the shock and just the confusion and right. But I knew, and I'll say this to any parent who has had to step away from their children in order to get themselves together. If you did it to protect your children, then you did the right thing. But you must be prepared for them to throw real hard stones at you when you come back.
Yeah.
And once I knew that I didn't care what they hurled at me, but I was going to come back and stand in my truth and let them confront me and be what I'm supposed to be, which is their mother. That's what I did. And it was hard, and it's still hard because I still don't feel like I've regained everything that we lost, right? In terms of relationship.
Right.
Okay. Because they were little when I left, and now I come back and they're almost grown, you know?
Right.
So you have to account for that. And you have to be willing to let them beat you up. Got to be willing to let them beat you up, to get it out, to tell the truth and let them feel their feelings of anger, hatred, resentment, whatever it is. Right. But you have to stand in that. And don't waver and stay. Plenty of times I said, you know what, this is too hard. They did fine without me. You know, they do fine with. No. No. I left them once because I wasn't in my right mind.
Right.
I don't have that excuse anymore. By choice, I don't have that excuse.
Right.
So whatever they want to throw at me, be just up to the line of abuse. I'm not gonna let you abuse me now.
Right.
I learned.
Right.
But whatever honest engagement they need to have about the hurt that my dysfunction, my illness, my choices cause them, I have no choice but to accept it and apologize for it and respond accordingly, because they didn't ask to be here. They didn't ask to go through this. They were the children, not the adults.
Right. That's so true.
You know, they didn't inflict harm on anybody. You know, so you know, you have to, again, and it all goes back to my life theme about you having to want to be well. You have to want to be whole. You have to want to be healthy. Just like people want to be rich and they make it happen.
Right.
You got to want health for yourself in that same way, with that same passion, you know?
That's true. That's definitely true.
Thank you for coming again this week and listening thus far to Cynthia's story. There should be a little bit more on her story, and I hope you enjoy. I hope you learned a lot, and I hope if you need any help, anything that we talked about in the episode, everything will, as you know, in every episode is linked down below. And if you want to be a part of the podcast, like I always say, you could definitely contact us. Everything again will be down below for your enjoyment. And thank you so much, and see you next time.